The recording has started.
Yeah, I'll do after my introduction, we'll open it up. Thank you. We appreciate you for joining us this evening. We've got some interesting news that I'll be bringing up, but we appreciate everybody joining us, and the whole thing about this is about education. If we don't educate ourselves, how are we supposed to know the truth? And it's our responsibility to educate ourselves and the children. And that is the one thing, because our public employees have failed their position because that's just the way they are. And that's the one thing people need to comprehend of what's going on in our system. And it's our system. That's the one thing that people need to comprehend. It is our system. And most people don't want to get that structure. And I've had some conversations with people that are still trying to convince me we're a British colony. And I sent them the structure of Congress. I sent them how the Queen of England has nothing to do with us. Even the Queen of England has been public trying to ask the general public, stating if you want the British to take back over your colony, basically is what she said, but, she'll take back over the United States in responsibility. Well, see, our terrorist elected and public employees, especially the damn Clintons, have been signing over the private sector, the public sector, over to the Queen of England, like your income for your Social Security for the employee side. They had a contract that if Hillary Clinton would have been elected, she was going to literally sign all commercial identities over to the Queen of England. And this is the one thing that people have got to pay attention when these other people on these damn websites trying to tell you we're a British colony. We are not. I have a certified copy, 1993, from the Queen of England that I actually publicized in the newspapers. I actually made sure it was recorded and filed in the Oregon State House and Senate and Congressional Records of Oregon that we are not a British colony. The Queen of England signed the instrument, 1999, stating the Constitution is our law of this land and the treaties. Not the damn Queen of England and all this other crap that people are trying to brainwash you. Because, see, the one thing is because of the federal debt note, because the bankruptcy goes to the Queen of England. The British went bankrupt to you people. Me, you, the lawful bloodline Americans. They went bankrupt to we, the people. And that is the frustration that we live today, because we've got all these people who read all this stuff, but they don't go by congressional records, which I have done. I've even proven it through the Supreme Court to even Judge Roberts. We put in affidavit to Judge Roberts, and this is when Judge Scalia was murdered. And yes, he was murdered. And we put an affidavit in, and Judge Scalia had that affidavit when he went to Texas, and then Obama showed up 3 hours before they found his body with a pillow over his face. That's pretty damn hard to kill yourself with a pillow committing suicide. That's what they were trying to say, but that they started it out with that, but then, they got caught with that one because nobody was buying the bullshit. So it is one of those things that people do not comprehend. So when we go through all these conflict of interest, that's like taxes. I've already proven it. You can type in the internet that taxes are voluntary. And if you actually read your tax form, instead of just being a slave and signing out and being terrified of your own shadow, when you sign that tax form, it actually states on the tax form, it's a gift to the Queen of England. Your income tax, your state income tax, and most of all, your property taxes. Everybody says, oh, that money goes into your county for development. Bullshit. I've already proven that. That's why they're fighting me on property taxes still today. So, I mean, and that's the thing, that when we're doing this and we're taking the risk of our safety instead of being a sheep to run off the cliff, you know, and that's the thing that disturbs me, because I've had people say, well, that's compliant, it's easier. Well, sorry, what do you mean easier? You know, and that's the point that gets to me about, no offense to religious people, but that's when they go praying. Oh, excuse me, you bow your head and pray in fear? Men don't do that. Real men don't do that. They stand up to their enemy, right, and look them in the face. And believe me, it's been done many times. So when we go through these things that with the Constitution and the misguidance we get through the Constitution and all these damn groups out there that don't know what they're talking about, who don't care what they're educating the people on. And so after we get a little bit in the education here of disclaimers, I'm going to be reading a structure that I have posted up that is going to blow you people away on a lot of structure, because everybody keeps going, the courts do this, the courts do that, and I keep telling them, how come you're not reading? How come you're not filing criminal charges? You know, and it's not only me, there's other men and women that have helped written instruments for people, or actually given them the instrument idea of the laws and stuff. And what disturbs me is how come, you know, they want to whine and cry and bitch, but then they don't want to charge the charges on public employees. And I've been through that with numerous people, literally. And that disturbs me. You know, I've had people say, well, what if I don't file? And if I file, why should I file the complaints on the judges and the cops and all this? Well, then if you don't file, you have no standing. In other words, their word is what they call law of statute, codes, and administrative rules. When you file against them, now you have standing. You have to clear that either you're lawful or a legal citizen for your standing. And that's the one thing that really disturbs us, because there's a lot of people out there, a lot of men and women that help people out, and they go through this frustration. And we don't want to keep doing this stuff, just going through frustration. And so it is difficult when you try to explain to people. You can send them the easy videos to watch, you can send them the law, and then they still want to argue about the point, why should I file? Why should I do this? Well, I know that there's several of us with some of these people are just getting tired of wasting their life with them, because that's time in my life and these other men and women. When we do this, we can't get back. You know, it's like when I was sitting I went in to go get medical supplies the other day, and they're trying to tell me, well, we don't have a doctor's permission for you. Yeah, and then they're playing these head games with me, and it's like, how come you can't call the doctor? He could email the prescription, but technically I'm getting another oxygen mask. Where the hell do I need a prescription when you've already got me in the computer? So the lady wants to argue about the point that you don't have a prescription and we're not going to talk or deal with you. So I'm going to finish a letter to her boss and her employees, both of them, and demand either that if they don't change their attitude, they should be terminated, because I know many people in my community have gone through the same thing, and I'll have them write a firing letter. We'll all send it individually. That's like everybody says, oh, we need to do a class action suit. No, you do not want a class action suit. Because when you do a class action suit, when a judge throws it out, everything's thrown out. And technically, when it's thrown out, you have to rewrite it, but you can't write it the same because you can't re-enter the evidence that's been thrown out. But if you have, 10, 20, 40, 50, 100, or 1,000 people putting in their own suit, they can throw out half of them, and if half of them get passed and they get rewarded the case, then the other ones are guaranteed. See, the thing that we try to do, and there's several of us out here and on this line too, that we're trying to educate people. How do you win? And that's the point. Do you want to win? Do you want to be successful when you come to these domestic terrorists that are rape, robbing, and pillaging us, violating our Constitution oath? And that's where I'm leading into the introduction, what I'll be reading on this one here shortly. So when I read this, this is where I'm coming from. You have to know the administrative rules and the laws. All these people go, I want to do it on the private side, and then you wonder why their case gets thrown out, or some mysterious reason they get arrested. And then some of them will get charged with paper terrorism. And it's like, did you put in, with another couple cases, I'm suggesting things to people, and they're writing corpus or corpus delicti, but they're not putting the law in it, and they're not claiming to be the injured man or woman. See, you have to claim your injury. You can't just sit there and go, I'm a corpus delicti. All right, so we know it's a corpus. We know the structure of Title 18, 3771A, but the bottom line comes down on it. Are you the injured man or woman, or are you just a corpus? A corpus means a dead body. So when you just write corpus, it means you're dead. So that means, you're agreeing to their terms because your straw man account claims you as dead. The thing is putting this stuff together, opening your mind, not be short-minded. And so when you're going through your cases and putting these things together, it is walking through it so that way you comprehend the structure of what you are stating. So you have to make your claim of injury. You have to sit there and state your claim. I've been arrested, kidnapped, held for hostage. I've been slandered. I've been in captivity. I was held hostage, and that's a crime. So you have to explain what, why, and how you were held as a hostage. See, and that's the one thing that these guys won't tell you, the judges and stuff, because judges and attorneys work for themselves. They have their own message that they do, or their own payouts that they do back and forth, because a judge and attorneys will throw one case for another case, barter it, or somehow they get a gift or a donation. And so it's paying attention to the real world, not what's going on in people's fantasy mind. That's why I always recommend this movie, Interstate 60. It gives you a basic introduction to the court system. Remember, it's a voluntary system. And if you're in an Article I court, you're in a legislative court. That's not a Constitution court. I've had many people say, oh, well, when you file in court, it's the Constitution court no matter what. Did you clarify that you are not in an Article I? Did you clarify in your affidavit that you needed the oath of office from the judge, from the clerk, from the secretary, from the deputy that's going to be in your courtroom? So you have to prove these things. It's your responsibility to write and prove these things. If you're asking the judge for his oath, with respect, I like you to have your oath and your structure of that, a certified copy. Now, I'm going to get into that one, what I've been doing with the stuff with the sheriffs here in a minute. But the one thing is when you're doing this, you have to clarify these things. And I've had many, many people tell me, well, the judge knows what I mean, or the clerk knows what I mean. Oh, big mistake, because you leave that door opening. You just left it for them to decide your case because you didn't put your evidence in it. That's the one thing that most people do not put the evidence when they write these things up. Because, if you're sitting there and you've been kidnapped and held for ransom, you have the right. You were kidnapped and held for ransom for personal gain for a private-owned jail that you would like to have certified copy, that who's the board members and who is the stockholders of that jail. And the stockholders of the jail, you're going to be surprised, is most of the time the judges and the lawyers, the sheriff's department and local police departments, the local elected and public servants unions, are the investors of those things. Some of the local businesses, like in my community, we got a few of the big businesses that are invested in our jail. So they get a dividend check every month from that. And that's where people, oh, by the way, they're municipalities, so that way you don't have to pay taxes on them. And that's what everybody loves about municipalities. When you get a traffic ticket fraction for anything, that gets sold on Wall Street, and so they know it. And so that's the whole point, trying to get people to open their eyes to the reality of the fantasy they're living. Most people are too busy living in Disneyland and, other games, other structures. They don't pay attention, and the lack of education in our country is so disturbing because we've got such a loss of education. We have watched the Democrats literally alter history in the Constitution. We watched them literally alter the history structure they put out in their writings. And they always put a low C citizen. And if you ever read the 14th Amendment, it actually states in it, upper lower C citizen in the structure of the court. And if you haven't read the actual court case that really made the history, that was Scott versus Dredd versus Scott. And so this is the one thing that people need to do that because, see, the 14th Amendment left the door open for you to be a slave. So did the 13th Amendment, too. And remember, the 13th and 14th Amendment was passed the 13th Amendment was ratified. It was actually ratified by the senators. Now, the 14th Amendment was passed by administrative rules, and we'll be getting into that later on. So you have to know what administrative rules is versus the Constitution law and treaties. Remember, the treaties is the Constitution, and that's where the treaties says the treaties are the law. The treaties are the Constitution or above the Constitution because with the natives, they had to write treaties. And everybody says, well, we got treaties going back to the 13th or 16th century here. Yeah, who did you sign them with? Foreigners. They didn't have any legal rights or lawful rights, most of all lawful rights, called lawful native bloodline Americans. They didn't have rights to do that. That's like the Banking Act. Everybody says, well, you got to pay taxes. Did you sign the tax contract of 1933? No, you did not. See, it's walking out of the movie, watch the production, put these pieces together, and stand up for your rights. And that's the point. You have to learn these rights. And if somebody is mentally retarded and not educated in any sort of fashion, or they don't comprehend things, and that, their mental ability is not all there. I'm not going to say fluffy words like the Democrats do. To hell with that. But anyhow, if you're not mentally prepared, that's our job to step in that place to help the people who are not mentally prepared. And so that's what the structure of the forefathers set up for us that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to protect one another on this soil. We're not supposed to go against one another on this soil. And that's what's going on today. Everybody wants a job. It's like when I spent time up at the Oregon State House and Senate. And it was interesting because I'm talking to senators, the Supreme Court justices, and I'm going, how come we're not getting this and that's supposed to happen, especially like House Resolution 192, because we're supposed to have our bills paid for. And all of them said to me, hey, Ed, what are you bitching about? Everybody wants to work. They don't want freedom. They're like, bullshit, I want freedom. Well, yeah, but that's you. You're not everybody else. So basically, you're out here on the limb. So, good luck, And that's why I keep filing what I do and bring it up in education and file it. Like what we just did with the sheriff deal. I'll be sending out to the 36 county commissioners this week. So all of them will be served basically the same letters as the sheriff. And then after that, we got 212 cities in Oregon. And that's going to take me about a month to email every city manager, every city mayor, and every city council. And right now in the Toledo Corporation, they're going after recalling the city council right now, the mayor. And I told them this was going to happen when the last election I ran for, and I lost. And I spent a couple grand in that thing because I had my own voter pamphlet mailed to each and every man, woman in the city that they had to get notarized as a de jure lawful mayor, not a corporate mayor. So they attacked me in the press and media really heavy because they didn't want to lose that percentage they're getting and skimming off of the back door of money. And that's the point. People were starting to wake up across the country about the money, the budget. Where is it? You know, it's like in the state of Oregon, they got, what, $7 billion in reserves that they're supposed to go technically right back to lawful Americans of Oregon Territory. So everybody would get, well, I don't know, at least a check for a minimum of $180,000. Shit. No debt after that. People will be completely out of debt, but the state does not want that. They want you to be bowed and enslaved to the corporation of the bankers. Because that's what these men and women do. They're slaves of the bankers. They make these deals, and they put it on your responsibility to pay their deals. That's why you're a registered voter, because registered voters are lawfully responsible for the debt that your public employees do. So when I read this way you guys can start altering your thinking when we get to that, because I want to get a couple of these 6-minute videos in, because we want to open up some things on an introduction. We're going to be starting this week, Sunday night, dealing with the amendments to the Constitution. We're going to hit the first 10. Well, actually, there's 12, but the first 10, and then we're going to hit the 12 through 27 and go through the administrative rules, what they apply to, and how they affect you. And remember, those are administrative rules. They were never ratified. That's the point. It's like everybody keeps going, the 16th Amendment was ratified, and I keep telling people, prove it to me. Of course, I'm not the only one. There's 100 people on the internet that have done that, and YouTube videos going to Congress say prove it, and there's been people testifying in Congress for them to actually prove it's certified copy, and nobody's been able to produce it because it's never been ratified. It was ratified by administrative rules. Oh, that's right. That was right after the Banking Act, too, of 1933 when it was ratified by administrative rules. Okay, so it was never ratified. The House and Senate passed it for their own personal financial gain to make sure that you're in a position of slavery, and taxes never really became existence until 1940. Your state and federal income tax. Prior to that, I've never seen actual proof. In my county in 1990, I was fighting against them incorporating outside areas to put them on the tax rolls because people outside city limits didn't pay taxes. Now they're going after everybody to put them into slavery of the corporation called Elected and Public Employees of the Devil Queen and the Devil Pope. And religion. Your religion. You know, you go to church, you give donations. What does that do? They take that, send that donation to the Vatican. Every church does it. I don't give a damn what religion you think you are. They do it. And then at the end of the year, the state sends them a check back because they write off their water and electricity and all that, so they get paid back by the state. And those are the 501c3s, so people don't get it. You know, I've had people trying to tell me there's other programs out there and we don't have to report our income and we don't have to do that. And I've asked them, prove it to me first before you try to tell me this stuff. I know it. I've been a 501c3. I've been through the administrative rules of it. I've been through the House and Senate public hearings on it, spoke against some of this stuff, brought evidence so some of these bills couldn't pass. And so when people tell me this, I tell them, I want to see proof. I mean, because otherwise it's hearsay evidence, and that's a lie. That's not admissible. I do not accept hearsay. Nobody should accept hearsay. Because hearsay is what always gets a man or woman in trouble. By their state, by their community, by, you know, I don't like using the British term community. That's another enslavement word. But, and I sure don't like the word village because that doesn't take a village to raise a God-blasted child. It takes the parents to raise a child, the neighbors to raise a child. The rest of the city doesn't have a goddamn state or opinion in your life. I mean, I'm watching a case the other day where a parent called on a child for selling Girl Scout cookies without a license from the city. You know, and these people need to go to jail for that. There is no license, especially a child needs. A license is under commercial industry, and that depends if you want to be part of commercial or if you're private. Private means that you cannot advertise in the TV, the newspaper. You know, you could advertise like on your grocery store or something like that on their little bulletin board because, you know, that's a public bulletin board. But you cannot make it, you know, flyers and newspaper flyers and all that. You cannot go to those extremes to be a private business. Either you're public or private. It's cut and dry. It's that simple. So if you're taking out advertisements and all that, hey, you're guaranteed that you're the slave to pay it. But if you're on the private site, you don't have to pay that stuff. I know. I've had many private businesses myself, never had business license. I did have an umbrella insurance package on mine because I was a bodyguard and bouncer, you know, because I had to protect myself that way as a bodyguard and bouncer to the nightclubs. But, you know, that's the one thing that you don't have to have these permission slips. And when people go out there and they ask for permission slips, and then they wonder why they get to knock on their window or they're going to tow their car because they didn't pay this business license or they didn't pay the fees. And that's the one point that I do suggest to people, file your rights on a deal. Make sure that when you do that, you have to make sure you publicly hang them on the police bulletin boards. You have to hang them on the county commissioners. And always make sure you file it in the museums. See, there's a lot of things out there that we have that are available to us, but as more and more people are actually doing it today, and a lot of people are really doing this today, a lot of people are getting it. They're putting it together. They are standing up on these issues. So it is putting it together, so we are collectively starting to stand. But the thing is to start standing together. So not be divided, you know. I mean, that's the one thing that I personally have been somewhat divided or outcast by people because I don't believe in their religion. Well, that's what pisses me off about those people. They claim, oh, I have a constitution right, but you do not. If you don't believe in my religion, you don't have a right. Women shouldn't have abortions because some book said so, or whatever their psychological mental belief is. But when it comes down to it, the Constitution gives the woman her body. It's her body, not yours. Not some book, not some preach, not some Baptist minister, not the popes. The Constitution in the 48 states is the only place in the world that a woman has a right, not a privilege. So when we're arguing about that, and if you really care about that, respect a woman on these rights. And trust me, when women start getting respect, they'll start thinking. Everybody says the woman should close her legs. It's her fault. Oh, come on, wake up. I hate ignorant assholes like that because we're all animals. We're no different than a dog, cat, a horse, a monkey, you know, any other mammal, a whale or whatever else, because our instincts is that to procreate. And that's a reality. So when people go off on these tangents without having not only respect for themselves, but their fellow lawful bloodline Americans or even legal citizens. And everybody goes, my taxes shouldn't go to that. It ain't your goddamn taxes. Your taxes doesn't pay for anything. As soon as you start accepting reality that your taxes go to the Queen of England and the Vatican and not a goddamn dime stays in this country, until somebody could prove it to me, because I've asked the budget, I've recalled public employees, I've gone after them when I was able to prove $30 million with a guesstimate of 150 that was embezzled, where the money is, and we followed the traces, and that's why we were blocked by the State Attorney General and the Secretary of State and everybody else, because we were finding out where the money was going, and we know it's going to the Vatican and the Queen of England. We know that they get their percentage that they pocket at the Oregon State House and Senate and your state. I mean, they do this stuff. So when people start accepting the reality of the truth, I mean, I live this stuff. I literally witnessed this stuff with my own eyes. I've been there filing. I've been having, they've attempted to murder me on this. I've been almost beaten to death. I've been shot at by these people for exposing this stuff. Told to back off and quit it, Ed. I'm not going to quit it. Like last month I died, okay? Literally, my heart and lungs shut down. That was even confirmed by the doctor 8 days ago when I was in the hospital or doctor's office. And everybody keeps going. I mean, this is the third time I came back. And so they're like, how do you do this? And I'm like, hey, I believe in a great spirit, and I ain't done yet. You know, I mean, I have a structure. When these people that destroyed my family, I want them to make sure. You know, because I mean, I have some very ill thoughts that I have about these people that have visualized about their end of life, how it should happen. But I'm not going to take part of it because I'm not going to be ignorant. But, you know, it's like things happen in life. Like what happened to me. And a lot of us have been through different medical situations, and we still ask why and how we're still here and how we're accomplishing things. To me, that's what we're supposed to be here for. So when people go off on you and say you need a license, ask them to prove it. Prove the law. And when they say, oh, they give you a statute code administrative rules and says that's the law, no. That's a statute code administrative rules that elected and public servants and, you know, immigrants have to follow, elected and public employees. I mean, I put this stuff up, their own structures in writing that state this stuff with Congress writing it and your states write it. And so when people go off on these limbs, don't even know what they are talking about. You got to realize a lot of these people don't know what they're talking about, and then you got a lot of these people do know what they're talking about. They want to keep you in the system so that way you're paying their employment, what they think. And I've asked public employees to do that. That's like the police department, the sheriff's department, when they sell your property and stuff, they steal the money. Property cannot even be sold by a sheriff because the sheriff has no authority. And I've got the court cases on it, and it's on the website. So I brought it out. I'm not putting that out yet. I will be putting out more information, but I'm not going to get out until after I send the other couple letters out that I'm doing. You know, I mean, I sure don't want to expose myself for them to be prepared. Neither should you when it comes to it. You got to be very cautious who you talk to, who you tell. Because I don't give a shit if it's your mommy and daddy. You know, do you trust them with your life or not? And I mean, you have to know that, not just think so. So these are the things that we go through and the problems that we are living today. And that's why when we send out our information, we always put the disclaimer on it. We always put on the structure that if somebody else uses it for personal and private gain, that we're entitled to a percentage. Because I don't care if you want to use it and stuff, but if you use it and you win your court case, hey, make a gift. You don't want to do a deduction or tax deal. I've had people say, well, gifts can be taxed. Well, read the gift law if you actually read the gift law. But that's the problem. People don't read the law, the constitutional law that's in your administrative rules, and that's what I'm going to get to here in a little bit after. We'll do that after this, the first video. I don't know if he's got the first one for the short one or if he's got the first one that has the two the way he wants to do it yet. But this is the one thing that, when it comes down to this, is that working together so that way you are protecting your bloodline, your family. And I get very cautious with people that are in the system, and, they have to rely on the system for their structures of life. But then again, some of them have filed against the state and stuff. And so, they're not going to go after that because, or after them. You've got to pay attention to what you are really doing. And that's the one thing that most people don't do. They don't pay attention. They're not paying attention. They're not really caring about what they're doing with their children. They're not caring about what's going on around them. But then again, they want you to pay for it. They want you to be responsible. And this is the frustration. We don't want to live. That's the point, that we don't want to live. I don't want to live. So it does come down to personal responsibility and liability. And once people start accepting personal responsibility and liability, and they start comprehending what the law means compared to statute, codes, and administrative rules, we start winning. And there are things that are going across the country right now today are winning. And if you pay attention, you've been watching administrative rules change across the country. Donald Trump has actually been paying attention to the people and signing executive orders to protect things. And before I start the video, the one thing I want to get to Donald Trump, everybody's whining that Donald Trump's doing the pipelines and stuff. And like I tell these natives and all these people, like full bloodline Americans, Native Americans, they're doing this. And it's like, you dumbasses. I mean, you're dumbasses. How come you're not filing criminal complaints against the board members who control it? You go after the corporation and you wonder why you lose. Duh. I mean, the one thing is you got to file criminal charges on the president, the board members, the CEOs that are personally liable for the damages that they cause. And believe me, for the last 6-7 years, I've been talking to the natives, chiefs. I've been invited to and spoke at, in the last 15 years, tribal structures that I've gone in and talked to the chiefs and their board members of how to do this. And all I hear is that if we do this, we're going to lose our federal funding. No, they can't take your federal funding. That's guaranteed in the lawsuits, the Constitution, administrative rules they already passed. But some of these people just don't want to do it because they're so happy about what they get, the little chunks they get, that they personally get, and they screw their bloodline. And we all see it, we all watch it, and that's the frustration. And so the one thing is that we do know that people are waking up. We do know, and I personally know several natives that have been waking up, filing their rights, getting this stuff done. These public employees are saying that their law is above the treaties, the Constitution. You know, they're gods. Well, not one of them is a god. And when I meet God, then I'll tell you. But until that, there ain't no God. God is in you. Faith is in you. Your belief is in you. That's why the forefathers wrote the Constitution the way they did. And if you ever go back to the structure, going back how they argued, because, yeah, they were trying to make Christianity the law of the land. They couldn't do that because they came from Christianity, from England. And they argued on that one, and they finally agreed. That's why they left England. Because, and I've got the deal where common law is the law of the land in England, and that's called the British Vatican, and that's on Wikipedia. Look it up. So everybody goes, I want common law. Okay, in other words, you want religious law, so you don't have a right. I've been preaching that for years, and if you've been listening to me on this talk show, I've been saying it for years. Every talk show I've been on for the last 15 years, I've been saying this stuff. You give up your rights if you want common law. Common means your community or your village. So if the village says you're not going to paint your house pink with blue stripes, you can't do it. I don't care if I do that. It's like I got buildings on my soil that are painted soft baby blue, turquoise. And my neighbors are going, oh, I don't like the color. Like, shove it up and don't even talk to me. You don't have a right telling me how to paint my stuff. I mean, I was going to paint a mural on the side of my house, and I still would like to do that. And they're going to try to go after me. They can shove it. See, that's the one thing that people have got to wake up to it, of what's going on in your home, on your soil. When you get involved with all these people that are trying to do that, and you think that you're trying to make an impression, you know, I mean, I sure to hell was not going to be part of the system. Of course, I have been. I have been elected and public employee. Been there, done it. I mean, you sometimes got to go learn. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and let the videos get played and wait for him to let me know. And when we get to that, and then I've got something when I read this and explain some of this stuff, is going to walk you through another point of view. So anyhow, the floor is yours. Or what we recycle. And these videos are on YouTube, so they are already public. So that's why we're saying this too, to cover ourselves. But they're already public, so there's no disclaimers on these videos themselves. And this is the introduction that we're going to start when we start getting into the amendments. So thank you.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
The Constitution of the United States, the supreme law of the nation, consisting of 7 articles and 27 amendments. The document was drafted by the Constitutional Convention held in Philadelphia in the year 1787. This was a time of turmoil for the newly formed federal government, as citizens expressed dissatisfaction with the government's lack of authority to pass laws for the entire nation. Prominent statesmen issued repeated warnings that the future of the Union was in danger, and revision of the government was needed. An unexpected solution came in 1786 from a convention of representatives of 5 states meeting in Annapolis, Maryland, to establish uniform trade regulations for the 13 states. That convention called for all states to send delegates to a separate convention for this declared purpose: to devise such further provisions as shall appear to them necessary to render the Constitution of the federal government adequate to the exigencies of the Union. The proposal was endorsed by Congress in February 1787, and the Constitutional Convention convened 3 months later with 55 delegates representing 12 states. Rhode Island refused to send delegates out of fear that increased federal regulation would injure the state's successful trade industry. George Washington was named president of the convention, which was in continuous session for 16 weeks, establishing a government of limited and delegated powers. On September 17, 1787, 39 delegates signed the Constitution
created with free
and sent
version
it to
for
the
non-commercial
Congress
use
of the Confederation. On September 28th, Congress sent the Constitution to the states for ratification, as Article 7 of the document required ratification by 2/3 of the states before the Constitution could become law. A bitter struggle ensued, with small farmers and artisans chief among those opposing ratification. Many favored a confederation of sovereign states, while others were concerned with safeguarding citizens' fundamental rights. These concerns were later addressed in the first 10 amendments. Rhode Island was the final state to ratify the Constitution. and did so only after Congress threatened to regard it as a foreign nation.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Yeah, I'm back. This is the whole point of learning what real history is compared to what we're led to believe in school. Now, Oregon State passed administrative rules that next year they're supposed to start teaching the Constitution back in the schools. And so we want to make sure that they're going to be teaching the real Constitution, not the Democrats' version. And so that's what concerns me, what the future might be holding for people. You know, their democratic point of view. Remember, democracy does not give you any rights whatsoever. Never has, never will. Democracy has destroyed every time it's been in place in the world. And so that's the one thing, and everybody keeps going, this is my democracy. You don't even know what democracy is. You think that it gives you a right to vote. You think democracy gives you freedom. It does not. It's psychologically to enslave you. And that's the point. And that's the point with religion. It's psychologically to enslave you. So standing up on these issues and start educating your children and ourselves on the real facts instead of the myth that we've been led to believe, we could change this stuff. And men and women who have been filing across the country, these senators are starting to listen to us. Because, of course, we're filing on them, too. Like I filed on the Sheriff's Department. And so I'm getting ready to send a list of letters out. I just did that again recently because I've had some of the Sheriff's Departments send me, and they want to charge me $50 to $85 an hour for their employees to put together what they're claiming that it's going to cost them. It's already in their budget. They lie. But they know that people are stupid enough to pay this stuff. They know it. And people pay this stuff. And so when they're paying this stuff, and by law, by state and federal law, even your own state has the state law that states very clearly that you cannot pay with a federal debt note. Federal debt note, if you pay with a federal debt note, that is a crime. And that's the one thing people need to realize. When you're paying with credit cards, you know, that's a federal debt note, basically. It's hearsay evidence. And the states, all the states have it in their statute codes and administrative rules that way. And I have it, and I've been posting it up. I've sent to many, many people, and they try to argue it, and I said, so you're going to argue the Constitution and the law. Good luck. And that is the one thing that we get frustrated with. And I know people who listen to this show and on it right now been through it themselves with people. And it is extremely disturbing when men and women want to argue the Constitution. Because the Constitution was designed in a structure where basically you have to get off your butt. And you have to go make sure that you feed your children. That means skinning deer, elk, catching fish, feeding the family off the land, the soil. And see, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be feeding each other off the soil and stuff. And then when men and women want to go on the other structure, that's where we end up losing our rights. That's where we end up losing these structures. I mean, when people get arrested for different things and they wonder why they got arrested. You know, it's like, you know, with taxation, people go, Ed, you know, how many times have you been in jail for that, not paying and stuff? No. Read the law. It's a gift tax to the Queen of England. The IRS, and you can type in IRS tax fraud. It comes up. Tax by deception. Type in exhibit, 50181. Just type in the IRS director says taxes are voluntary, and you'll watch Congress even tell you it's voluntary. See, that is the one thing that people are not getting the system. I don't believe in making a gift to the Vatican or religious organizations, and I sure don't believe in making a gift to the terrorizing woman called the Queen of England. You know, she's not worth anything. She doesn't have my respect. I mean, you don't bow to somebody like that because she's claiming she's the woman god of the world, and that's exactly what she does claim. So I want to get these other two videos out of the way, and then I'm going to read this 5 CFR. And when I read this to you, you'll see an interesting point here. But I want to get these videos out of the way because I want to do the introduction to why this was written. So are you ready with this? And then once we get that done, and then I'll read what I'm going to read you, how it falls into place to this.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Hello, this is the U.S. Constitution, 5 Key Concepts Everyone Should Know, Part 1. Please watch Part 2 after viewing this Part 1. Hello, my name is Craig Seibert, and this short web seminar is titled The U.S. Constitution, 5 Key Concepts Everyone Should Know. And if you're an international listener, please stay with us as we take a look at this key founding document for the United States of America and look at its concepts. 90% of today's Americans have never heard what you're about to hear. In the late 1700s, however, 90% of Americans had a basic understanding of the concepts in this web seminar. Thomas Jefferson, third President of the United States and author of the Declaration of Independence, said this: "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." And so we hope, as we look at these concepts, a new enthusiasm for freedom and understanding the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence will stir in the hearts and soul of the listeners. So the first concept that we want to talk about
with
is the
free
fact
version
that the
for non-commercial use.
Independence and U.S. Constitution work together. And there's actually a short web seminar on this topic, but to summarize, the Declaration of Independence serves as the charter or the purpose document for the United States, why the United States was founded and on the core principles on which it was founded. And then the U.S. Constitution serves as the bylaws for the United States. That is, it's our organizational document and how we'll govern ourselves. And so this is a key concept, that the Declaration and the Constitution work together, and that the Constitution acts on the principles and beliefs that are written in the Charter for the United States, that is, the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence, of course, was signed July 4th, 1776. It was over 11 years later that the U.S. Constitution was pulled together, and this graphic is just simply to show the difference in size
Created
of the two
with
documents.
free version for non-commercial use.
The Declaration being about 1,400 words long, and the Constitution being about 4,500 words long. Finally, there's an additional part of the Constitution not shown here that was added shortly after the initial ratification or during it, and that is the Bill of Rights, and it is a concise listing of the rights of the citizens of the United States as well as the rights of the states, and there's 10 items in the Bill of Rights. Now, as a next step, let's take a look at understanding the basic structure of the main body of the Constitution. And here we show what is typically viewed by people as the first and main page. The first key concept is this: the total length of the United States Constitution is over 4,500 words. About 4,000 of these words describe how the three branches of government are to operate, and we'll take a look at that. And then another 400 words describe
Created
the
with
relationship
free version
between
for
the states
non-commercial
and the
use.
process for making amendments to the Constitution. Here in this diagram, we show how these three branches of government are broken up, both by way of sequence, but also how much text of the Constitution is dedicated to each of the three branches. The first branch that's listed in the U.S. Constitution is the legislative branch, called Congress, And there's two parts of the legislative branch, the House of Representatives and the Senate. And they are identified in Article 1 of the Constitution and listed here. It's interesting to note that the House of Representatives is discussed first, then followed by the Senate. And as we'll discuss later, there's significance in this sequence in that the founders believed that the House of Representatives would be the slightly more powerful of the three branches because it was closest to the people. There would be a balance of powers, but the House of Representatives has some
Created
unique
with free version for non-commercial use.
Responsibilities. The second branch of government that's listed is the executive branch, beginning down here and then up into this section here. The third branch of government is the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, and then the remaining part of the government or Constitution deals with the relationship between the states and the process for making amendments. What might be lost in this process, though, is the importance of the first 52 words. We've looked at the document as it's been bracketed in this fashion, but if you look at the first 52 words of the Constitution, you'll find that these are the most important. And the first 52 words are literally contained in this small box here. And so as you can see, by way of quantity of words, 52 words out of 4,500 is not many, and yet they're the most important words in the Constitution. They state the 6 core purposes
Created
for which
with free
the
version for
Constitution was
non-commercial
written.
use.
These 6 core purposes serve to define and limit the remaining 4,450 words of the Constitution. And so these words are so important that they literally dictate what the rest of the Constitution should be guided by way of interpretation. And as I had said previously, this Constitution also is interpreted or built upon the Declaration of Independence. And so the flow would be from the Declaration to these 52 words, and those two things then in turn would interpret the rest of this document. Well, what do those first 52 words say? We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for common defense, to promote the general welfare, and to secure
Created
the
with
blessings
free
of
version
liberty
for non-commercial
to ourselves
use.
and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution. Now, for the sake of simplicity and clarity, let me reduce these even further so you can see the six aspects. We the people of the United States, in order to connect the states together, to establish justice, to ensure peace, to provide for defense, to promote the general welfare, and to secure liberty now and in the future. These are the 6 aspects of what the rest of the Constitution is designed to support and to guide. Let me also note here that to promote the general welfare as it would have been understood in 1787 did not mean the modern government welfare programs of today. What that meant was to create a fair economic playing field that all parties that were citizens of the United States could have access to use
Created
their
with
gifts,
free
skills,
version for
abilities, and
non-commercial
talents,
use.
to pursue the dreams and goals that they had in life, but not the government handouts that we associate with welfare today. As I've said already, everything else in the Constitution is supposed to serve only these 6 purposes. As citizens of the United States, we need to memorize these first 52 words. What a difference it would make. To continue this seminar, you'll want to watch part 2 now after watching this brief close of some other helpful resources. As we conclude, there are some additional resources you may want to take advantage of after watching the YouTube videos on this playlist. For more freedom videos, check out July4thfreedom.com. For tools on growing in your faith, check out the 21dayfaithexperiment.org. For complete worldview training that integrates faith and life, check out biblicalworldviewtraining.org. And then finally, to team up with other young professionals that are making a difference in the world, check out
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
My name's Craig Seibert. Thank you for listening.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
No, let me speak before you put part 2 in. Yeah, I'm there. I just had it muted, and it took me a second to realize it was still on mute. All right, but anyhow, I want to let people comprehend that I have actually filed in 1993. It is in the records of Congress and the universal filing. The Queen of England in 1993 re-signed the Constitution and had it filed in the archives of federal and state governments that the Constitution is the law of the United States of the 48 states. That was done in 1993. I spent several $100s publicizing in a newspaper. I even made sure it was on public record and filed with the Oregon State House and Senate. And it was sent from the Oregon State House and Senate, and it was filed in Congress again. So when people say we're owned by the Queen of England, no, nobody's disputed that. Nobody went against my filings on the structure that I filed with the Queen of England's own stamp on the original Constitution. Remember, they have a copy of the original Constitution, too, because we were fighting England for religious rights of freedom. We didn't want to pay taxes. We didn't want to be enslaved by religion. We didn't want their opinions. We didn't want nothing to do with their control and, for us to plead for our rights to fish and hunt. So that is the one thing that has been filed. It is out there. We do have it on the website, so you can actually read her own stuff. So when people try to tell you we're still a British colony, don't believe them. So anyhow, let's get to part 2, and then I'll get reading this other part.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Hello, this is the U.S. Constitution, 5 Key Concepts Everyone Should Know, Part 2, and this is a continuation of Part 1, which you should view first. Now let's move on and talk about the 3 branches of government and how they're designed to operate. As we take a look at the 3 branches of government, this will not be a detailed analysis. That could be a multiple hour-long course, but it should be an effective overview that'll give you a sense for how the branches operate and their roles and responsibilities. First, let's take a look at the legislative branch, Congress. And as we've already said, Congress has the most space dedicated in the Constitution for describing its roles and activities. And here are some of them. They're to borrow and coin money, to regulate commerce, to regulate immigration, to set up the post office and roads, to create an environment for good commerce,
created with free version for non-commercial use,
militias, to declare war, to conduct impeachments, to oversee the District of Columbia, and to make laws limited to the 6 purposes of the Constitution and these areas above. And you might want to make note of the fact here that there's 10 items on this list, and this is a summary list. There's actually a few nuanced more, but it'll give you a sense for the amount of responsibility. Next, the executive, the presidential office. As we've already seen, there's less space dedicated to that, and it's reflected in his responsibilities or her responsibilities. To be commander-in-chief, to appoint ambassadors, judges, and officers, to enforce the laws of the United States, to sign treaties and receive ambassadors, to grant pardons, and to give the State of the Union to Congress. And so you can see that this list of items is reduced to 6 rather than 10. Thirdly, the judicial branch, the Supreme Court.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Dedicated to describing its functions, which include to take appeals from citizens, courts, and states, to make principled judgments, to ensure jury trials, and to uphold the Constitution. One thing that's worth noting here as you look at the fourth item on the list, to uphold the Constitution, it's a common mistake now to think that the Supreme Court is the final arbiter of what the Constitution says. But in fact, how the Constitution is set up, all three branches are to uphold and to interpret the Constitution, not just the Supreme Court. Even at the founding, there was a great concern over the Supreme Court and possible judicial overreach or judicial tyranny because judges were appointed to life. And there was a feeling that the accountability judges might have or not have would allow them to encroach on the other two branches of the government over time. So concerned over this was even
Created with
Jefferson
free version
at
for
the founding
non-commercial
said
use.
this: the Constitution is a mere thing of wax in the hands of the judiciary, which they may twist and shape into any form they please. And so as we look at the state of things today, it seems as if these concerns have manifested themselves. The balance of power over the court, interestingly enough, is that Congress actually has the responsibility for establishing the jurisdiction of the court. They can limit what the court can actually rule on, and then Congress also has the power to impeach judges when Congress feels like they're operating outside of constitutional bounds. So in summary of these three branches, Congress was designed to be just slightly more powerful in this balance of power concept because they were closest to the people, and that's the House and then the Senate. And as you saw in the constitutional flow, that first section dedicated to Congress has the House responsibilities listed first and then the Senate.
Created with free version for
even the
non-commercial
layout of
use.
The Constitution bears out that fact. The President is powerful in war and in keeping the law. Otherwise, he plays kind of a medium role in the balance of power. And then the judiciary was designed to be the checks and balances on the other two branches, but designed to be least powerful with the least responsibilities because judges were in fact appointed for life, and they knew that there was grave concern there with the possibility of a creeping judiciary over time. The last thing we want to touch base on is the Bill of Rights and how it reaffirms and limits of the Constitution. And this is just a brief remark on the Bill of Rights, as there'll be another web seminar dedicated to it in more detail. But the Bill of Rights has item 1, which I'll at least mention here, that says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's the whole separation of church and state debate that goes on today.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
In the Constitution, but these words here of Congress's limitation of not making a law that establishes religion is actually the constitutional phrasing. And then in this first item of the Bill of Rights is also given the freedom of speech and freedom of press, although I don't have it in its original language here. What I want to make most note of here is Article 10 of the Bill of Rights, the 10th item on the list, and it says this: the powers not delegated to the United States are reserved for the states, respectively, or the people. So in other words, if the first 52 words don't define, or the first 52 words do define the limits and guides of how Congress, the President, and the judiciary should act, and then each of those branches of government have their list of responsibilities, but anything beyond that are responsibilities of either the
Created
states
with
or
free
ultimately
version
the
for
people
non-commercial
themselves.
use.
On September 17, 1787, the United States Constitution was signed by 39 of the 55 delegates attending the Constitutional Convention. So now that you've heard this, why don't you be a difference maker? One key item is to know that the Declaration of Independence and Constitution are designed to work together. Ask people if they know how the Declaration of Independence and Constitution work together. If they don't, tell them. Also, ask people if they know the first 52 words of the Constitution that limits and guides the whole rest of the document. If they don't, share that with them. And so you can have a better understanding of the Constitution than 90% of Americans if you master these concepts by simply knowing these two concepts of how the two documents work together, and then the fact that the first 52 words of the Constitution form its core. Don't let others tell you what these documents mean when you can know it for yourself. As we conclude, there's some
Created
additional
with free
resources
version
you
for
may want to take
non-commercial
advantage
use.
of after watching the YouTube videos on this playlist. For more freedom videos, check out July4thfreedom.com.
Yeah. Yeah, let me get this thing up, and I want people to start paying attention. And we do thank the associate. Oh, come on, computer, don't freeze up on me now. We would like to thank the associate that provided this information to us. And I want you guys to, goddamn computer, don't you try to crash on me right now when I'm trying to read. Oh, you got to wait a minute. I got to pull it up. It crashed on me again. I've been having too much fun with this computer. Hang on a second. I want to get into structure of the law that people do not know, they do not comprehend. People want to argue about this stuff, and trust me, I have argued about this stuff too. And growing up in elected and public employees union, literally, I can't get into everything about my family, but I won't do that because my family has a long history past in this country, going back to the Constitution, and as well as part of my family apparently goes back to England, actually King James, I'm informed. But the bottom line comes down to, I'm waiting for it to come up so I can start reading this. Because, like I said, I got to figure out coming up with the resources, make sure I got a new backup computer instead of keep going through this one with this one. But when the gentlemen that we just listened to these videos that are bringing this stuff up, this is what we're going to be doing, bringing this stuff up starting tomorrow night, dealing with the amendments and the structure of the amendments, dealing with your right of freedom. And this is the one thing people need to comprehend, what a privilege is of an immigrant and freedom as a lawful bloodline American. So I'm going to read some stuff to you, and please write this number down, because if you don't get what I read, and if I don't read it where it's clear, you can always type this number up and print it out and bring it up yourself and enjoy the reading. I do recommend, if you do bring this up, print it. Print it out, make sure you got it hanging in a couple places in your house. All right, 5 CFR 2635.101, basic obligation of public service. 2635.101, the basic obligation to public service. So you got that correctly. You've got the numbers. Look it up. Public service is a public trust of each employee. Remember, we have employees. There are servants. And that's the one thing that people have to realize. They're not above you. A cop ain't above you. He doesn't have lawful or legal authority above you at all. A sheriff does not have a legal authority above you at all either. And so to clarify this, as a responsibility to the United States government, and see, that's the one thing the video didn't bring up, of the fourth branch of government, because if you read the judicial structure in Congress, and if you read what the judges have passed since numerous treaties, and that was even confirmed in 1812 dealing with the Paris Treaty, we the people are the government. We're the fourth branch of government. We have authority. We own the government. We own these public servants, what they do. We're liable for the damages of what they do, too. That's why when it comes out, I tell you to write criminal charges. I suggest write criminal charges. Do it. Make sure they're on file. Because then that way it drops their liability insurance, so that way they're unemployable. There are ways to succeed in a lot of this stuff. And remember, this is called Constitution law. Citizens to place loyalty to the Constitution laws. Not statute, not codes, not administrative rules. In either principle above private gain. To ensure every citizen, and we want to make sure, even though it's small c, but it's supposed to be large c, because of the 14th Amendment made it a small c citizen, and we've done that, and we'll get into that later, can have a complete confidence in the integrity of the federal government, and each employee shall respect and adhere to the principles of the ethics conducted set forth in this section, as well as implementing standards contained in this part as the supplement agency regulations. Remember, they have regulations that's supposed to dictate to them what they can and cannot do. Those regulations, if you're not elected a public servant member or contract, do not affect you. They're not your regulations. Those are the regulations they have to go to protect you in the Constitution. General principles, the following general principles apply to every employee and may form a basics of the standards containing in this part where situation is not covered by the standards set forth in this part. Employees shall apply the principles set forth in this section. Now, I'm reading Section B. And so determining whether the conduct is proper. 1, public servants' trusts require employees to place loyalty to the Constitution, the laws and ethics of the principle above private gain. Employees should not hold financial interest, conflict with continuous performance of duty. That means the sheriff, the police department, lawyers, judges cannot have stakes in jails, in public assets. Go ahead. Oh, conscientious. Thank you for the correction. I appreciate that. I know what it said, but I said the opposite. But anyhow, this makes sure that these employees cannot even invest in the public system at all. They can't have any financial interest in it. That means their checks is the only thing they get under the 1938 Foreign Administration Act, and that even comes to the 1933 Bankruptcy Act. Employees shall not engage financial transactions using non-public government information or allowing improper use of such information to further any private interest. 4, an employee shall not accept as permanent by Part B, and you can read that, where he said that, of this part, select or accept any gift or any item of monetary value from any person or entitled sync office official, actions from doing business with or conducting activities regulating by the employee or agency whose interests may be substantially affected by the performance of non-performance of the employee's duties. So if they're a football, baseball coach and they're getting paid, they can't do it. That's one thing that people, oh, we need to do this. No, we don't. They already get paid. That's part of their deal if they want to do the extra. Employees should not put forth honesty before the performance of their duty. Employee 6 shall not knowingly make unauthorized comments or commitments. Thank you. I knew I was trying to get it out, but it wouldn't happen. Thank you for the correction. Or, yeah, if you want to go ahead and read it, because go ahead. Okay, well, that even goes like with Hillary Clinton. What Hillary Clinton and some of these congressmen have done with the uranium and everything else, they're making unauthorized commitments to foreigners and private corporations. They cannot do that at all. This is a crime. Go ahead, number 7. And that's like what our governors, congressmen have done, and that's called lobbyists as well. Number 8. Private organization, that's like CPS, judges, corporations of them themselves. Most of these senators and congressmen own these corporations, so that's why I suggest people do the research on these things, find out who the board members are, most of all, and they can't be board members on a lot of this stuff at all either, and so that's where you need to research it. Go ahead to 9. Okay. 9, employees shall protect and conserve federal property and shall not use it other than authorized activities. So that statement means that, the sheriff cannot sell your property. When he takes your property, they sell it, they're supposed to give you the money. They're not supposed to take a dime like they do today. And that is the one thing that people don't comprehend, that we have the laws in place to protect you. And to protect us. See, this is based off the Constitution and federal and Supreme Court administrative rules that have been laid out to protect you. Number 10, go ahead, you back? All right, number 10. Yeah. And that even comes to their private businesses they own when they're off the clock. Number 11. And that's what we're going to be serving to the sheriffs here pretty soon, because seeing that they're not obligated to do their Constitution employment, they are not entitled to employment or their services or their other aides and employees beside themselves. 12. Imposed by law, and if you actually read the Constitution, there is no taxes. Taxes came from the 1933 Bankruptcy Act. So when they started employing taxes, the elected and public employees are obligated to pay them by law because they get de facto dollars. And that's how they negotiate their structure for what they have. Okay, go ahead. And it's like me. I'm one of those handicapped, disabled people that they keep stealing my money and doing all this stuff, and they say they got a right to. And we've got the law that if you're on disability or anything like that, they cannot even tax your Social Security by state and federal law. They can't even say that you owe a bill or you owe this. They can't take your money whatsoever. Once you're granted that money, that is yours to be paid in full. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Well, yeah, I just got out from life support last July, so I was on life support for 6 days. Mm-hmm. And they know they can go after the father and tax them. It's called child support. Mm-hmm. And also, too, in court, the injured party or the parents of the injured party are the only ones who can sign an affidavit. Police, sheriffs, district attorney, judges, none of them can sign an affidavit. That's a federal crime. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is the point that we're trying to get people to comprehend the reality of the truth. Because when we keep preaching this stuff, and we're not the only ones, and I know that. We know other men and women out there have been preaching this, some of as long as I've been doing it. Some speak a different language than others. Some bring it up from a different wording, or I guess you could sort of say a different grade level of trying to get people to comprehend, because the average man and woman, even with a college degree, technically has a ninth grade education today. And everybody says, well, I got a master's. Do the research. Master's in what? Because a master's that was given out prior to 1985, you had a real degree. After 1985, remember, all colleges and universities and schools from K through 12, they couldn't have one student be smarter than the other one, because that was discrimination. And so they couldn't do discrimination in the class and have the heightened the performance. So that's why, as we all know, we get pissed off because how dumbed down our kids are being today and the system is being today. And we're living this. So this is what democracy has done to you. Literally, and I hate to say it too, religion has done it. Because I've been around ministers, pastors, and I'm an ordained reverend. And I've never done this, but I've been around where they sit there and tell people, oh, don't get involved. Let it go. Go pray to God. God will sort it out. God will handle it. Well, I've watched people pray for, sometimes even in their children's case, praying what they're doing. God's going to save me. And then their kids get adopted out. Then their kids get shuffled out, and they end up in foster care. Some of these kids get what they call accidentally dead or homicide, but homicide is murder. And so it's stepping out of the movie and watching a production of living real life compared to what we think it is. So we want to make sure that this stuff is brought to your attention, and we want to make sure that you folks start clarifying it in your mind. That's why I keep recommending this movie Interstate 60. Because you watch that movie Interstate 60, I do recommend it twice. And you'll see near the end of the movie how the court systems truly do know what's going on when you go in these court systems, because this is how they make their income off of you, off of your straw man account, because the state says, well, we'll provide an attorney for you. Attorney doesn't work for you. I have not to this date, and I see all these guys advertising that I'm a Constitution attorney, and I've called a lot of these people up. You know, I mean, I've got my case, I mean, you know, is a severe constitutional structure, including against the governor of the state of Oregon. And I've been told, oh, God, Ed, we can't touch that case. And I've written it up. I've got everything in it. I've even got congressional record or Oregon State House and Records where I've testified, even where Kate Brown told me where the assaults and the paranoia, not paranoia, but the attacks that have happened on me, the assaults and batteries, being pulled over at gunpoint, being almost beaten to death by the cops and all this. Oh, that's a civil matter. That's a criminal matter, folks. They take your child without a warrant. That's a criminal matter. Even January 27th or 29th, January this year, 2018, the Supreme Court of California stated clearly it needs a warrant to take your child. And a warrant cannot be robo-stamped. That's a federal crime, and I've even got the law on that. If a warrant is not in wet ink, and if you don't get a wet ink signature or autograph on a warrant, and warrants are technically supposed to be done by a jury of 12. They cannot just issue a warrant because you ran a stop sign and you didn't show up for court. They cannot issue a warrant because you didn't pay child support. Child support's another fraud. I know that. I was involved in that when all that crap that happened with Boxer, Pelosi, and all that shit in the 70s. You know, I physically lived that. I was at the meetings when I was a kid and stuff. You know, I won't get into some of those other stuff, but it's like, you know, stepping out, looking at this stuff, and reading this structure, especially where we're talking about this law that we read. Remember, this is law. This is not a statute, code, or administrative rule. It is a statute for them, but it's based off of the Constitution that gives you rights, not privileges. And the one thing that he did put up on YouTube right now is with the sheriffs that we have served, that I've served so far. We got one county that I haven't been able to serve because one county, Sherman, does not even list any public employee. The county has no registered commissioners or anything, and their county is actually listed as a private corporation. So if it's a private corporation, they're not even supposed to have contact with you. That's why we're bringing 5 CFR 2635.101, basic obligation of public service to you. And we do thank the gentleman that provided this information to us. But see, the thing, the bottom line that comes down to this circumstance is how are you going to protect yourself? Are you going to actually start standing up, or are you just going to bow your head and do what they tell you? You know, I'm sorry. I mean, I've been in a relationship, that was a decade ago, but I wasn't going to listen to praying to God. I said, let's do the research. Let's do this. Let's go after them. And I went after them, and, you know, and then it was like, oh, now you're the problem. And I'm like, I'm protecting you. You notice how they don't even talk to us? They don't come around and all this stuff? And it's like, well, I prayed to God. And it's like, no, I filed on him. I went to the cop and the people and went right to their face in public meetings and made it known. And so, and I've even testified at the Oregon State House and Senate public hearings, killing administrative bill or making sure certain amendments were put in place to protect the people of Oregon. So this is the one thing that when we bring this stuff up, we're not just talking crap. Because like we say on the website, they wrote it, we quote it. So when we quote the stuff that they wrote, remember, they have to write the stuff by the Constitution. They can write anything they want for administrative rules, but administrative rules only pertain to elected and public servants, registered voter, registered church members, and all immigration. And a lot of that's in the IRS code itself that clearly states it in the IRS code. And also, too, remember, the IRS is not a government agency. They are a private corporation founded from Washington, D.C. that runs out of Puerto Rico. So, I mean, it's like, that's what I see. When we do the research, we're not quoting things that we're, like some people will do on talk shows, just spouting stuff up. We're reading this stuff and telling you where to find it, how to get it, how to suggest that, you know, if you're writing an affidavit, people go, why? The judge says I have to write a motion. Okay, write the motion as an affidavit. And here's the affidavit for motion to dismiss the case. Here's the affidavit for the criminal charges of the men and women, the caseworker, the police officer, the judge, if the judge wants to play that game, especially the clerk, because if the clerk doesn't file the paperwork, they're liable. So that is the point that we bring up to you, because if we're not protecting you, you're not protecting your children, and you're not protecting us, and you sure ain't protecting our country. Because our country is the problem that's having with democracy. Everybody says we're a democratic democracy. Read the damn law and read the Constitution, when democracy even says in the Constitution, we are a republic form of government, and we shall not be a democracy. And they keep doing all this stuff. All these universities and all this stuff talk about democracy. Well, the reason why they do that, because they get paid to tell you that. Because if they told you the truth, oh shit, they couldn't get paid. And that's the fact that we are truly living with today. So, and that is the point that when you educate your children and you talk to them, you know, we are putting more and more educational videos up. We are working to set up a complete home education page for kids, you know, even including mathematics and stuff, because, you know, I do research on everything we put up, and especially when we do the homeschooling education. I got to verify the people that I'm putting up of their organization, and I want to verify what the circumstances of what they're teaching before I put my name on it, or I should say our name on it, because we don't want to be liable for these idiots. And that is the one point that you guys have to stand up for your children, your neighbors. I mean, it's like my neighbor, when he saw me being assaulted by the cop, and I was kidnapped and held for ransom, and that YouTube video's on YouTube video. And just type in at Johnson, Toledo, Oregon. I got a lot of videos up there on YouTube and stuff, where I've even served the commissioners. I've served this. I even went out and ran for sheriff, and boy, they start freaking out on that and attacking me. And like I said, what was that, just a couple years ago, I ran for mayor as the your mayor, and I sent out my own ballots that they could sign or autograph, because it was not signature. It stated completely autograph. And you had to be a landowner to vote by law, because remember, in the original structure, when they started allowing voting and after the Civil War, you had to be a landowner. And it didn't matter when they keep saying, well, women didn't have rights. If a woman owned the land, she had rights. See, we get lied to by these people all the time, and people go through this stuff and buy into this crap. And so that is a frustration that we're living, because they're saying that if you're not a landowner, you don't have a right to vote. Well, that's true. And then Carter was the one who opened up the door for the immigration from Cuba that was coming over. He was given a Social Security number, welfare, and Social Security when the people were coming over 65, got them registered to vote so that way they could vote for him, because he has decided to give them a free life. They didn't earn it. They didn't pay anything into it. And the one thing about Social Security, wake up. I don't give a damn what these idiots out there telling you about Social Security. Social Security is $68 billion in the black. Learn how to research and learn funding. And if you don't know that, go to CAFA 1. You know, Walter Bruin has a thing on CAFA 1 on the internet, and he's got it throughout the country. Explains that, has budgets up, how they're pocketing the money, where the money's going. I mean, I personally had spent time with Walter Bruin at the Oregon State House and Capitol. That was back in 2000 or something, when he came up was going that, and he's trying to get the Senate and House of Representatives to stand up. Oh, my God, the Democrats flipped out on him because they couldn't sit there and rape, rob, and pillage like Kate Brown is doing to us right now. Kate Brown is gambling your tax dollars away, literally gambling it. She goes to the casinos and stuff, and she plays and gambles with taxpayer money. It's true. It's a fact. It's been in the newspapers, too. And I filed in the ethics committees and stuff. But see, when they got their pocket line, now when I put this other letter out with this is going to put a little upset in a few people. So that is the one thing that people need to comprehend what the law is. And remember, when a public employee, a cop, or administrative, especially a code enforcer, this is the law. No, it's a statute, code, and administrative rules. Show me the law that says I have to do it. I mean, I've been fighting with the state, the county taxes, and they keep sending me statute codes and administrative rules. And then I read the administrative rules, especially on manufactured homes and private property. They can't tax it, even by state administrative rules. But if you don't pay them, they're going to shoot you. I was ready, literally, I was armed. I was ready for a shoot. I was ready to deal with it when, still, if they want to do it. Because, I mean, this is the point. We're Americans. We're we the people. Everybody wants to, they care more about football and sports than they do about their own children and their own structure. You and I have personally seen that, and you have witnessed it yourself about how some people care about more things than their own children. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have a right to raise their children, but they need to be properly educated. And when we start doing proper education around here, this is how we are going to change the country. Because remember, if you ever actually talk to a senator, congressman, anybody really even high places of government, they tell you, hey, I'm in a position here. How come you're not changing it? How come you're not protecting me? How come you're not making sure it happens so I don't get forced to go along with this? Because we do have very honorable elected and public servants, and we have some very honorable contractors that are public servants called peace officers, marshals, even FBI and CIA, but they get caught up in the crap. And that's the one thing that people got to realize. So I'm waiting for a response from these other people that sent me, they want me to pay this, so I'm waiting to see how they want me to pay it. And then when they want me to pay, send me what they want me to pay, I have a surprise for them, especially from Oregon state law. Yeah, once I serve them, then I'll bring that out. But I'm not going to, I've already let too much of the cat out of the bag. But see, this is the one thing that when we do this stuff, and we suggest to you, research, turn off the damn TV, turn off your damn cell phone crap. Turn off those little games on the cell phone crap, and everybody's on the cell phone talking about nothing, literally nothing. The weather is sunny. You can see it when you look out the door, it's sunny. So that is the main point where these things come to existence. So when we work together on these things, that there's more and more of us getting together, working together, people are educating. They are learning how to file under elected and public servants. I've had some disagreements and arguments with a few people that, that want to do this, but then they don't want to do it because if I do it this way, I might be a target. Then what the hell are you calling us for? Either you want your children or you want to stand up, then quit wasting our life. My life is not here to waste for people. I've been literally, dead a couple times. My life is not here to waste. Neither is your life to waste. So if you want to have the education, take your kids out hunting and fishing. Take them to the beach. Take them to the mountains. Not to an entertainment park where you're paying like Disneyland and all this shit. Take them to the woods. The reason why your mountains and forests and county areas are closed down because in Oregon, they're still signing public land over to the timber companies and to different foreign corporations. Legally and lawfully, foreign corporations cannot own any assets or property in the United States, period. That's congressional law. And that even goes back to the paperwork in 1790. You're not supposed to have foreign corporations. And so this is the point that, it's reading this stuff, standing up for their Constitution, including on immigration. Immigration is a privilege to this country. These people don't have a right to come here and eat. They don't have a right for medical. They don't have a right to life here. They don't have a right to drink our water. They don't have a right to homes. Period. They come here, they're supposed to have income in their pocket, not to take jobs away from Americans. Technically, they're not even supposed to be immigrant workers. And that even goes back to the slave days of 1852, dealing with the Paris Treaty, and after that with administrative rules that they passed in 1854. We've got this stuff. I put it up. I put it in my letters. I put the congressional records in this stuff. And it means something, like what we just read. That means something. So when these public employees steal your children, write you an illegal citation, and if you're a lawful bloodline American, 5 or more generation, by Dred Scott case in the 14th Amendment, if you actually read it, with the 13th Amendment, how it applies, because it does separate a large C citizen and a small C citizen in the congressional records. And so when they separate this stuff, this is where we have to protect the bloodline of this country. I mean, I've seen more immigration. I mean, we have a couple immigrants in this country that are first generation that are out there preaching the Constitution. I know I'm an immigrant. What the hell is your problem with you Americans and stuff? And they're going after people, Americans, and yelling and screaming at them on YouTube and Facebook. And these guys are proud to eventually pass their genes down to 5 generations. I mean, I've talked to dozens of these men and women across the state, Utah, Texas, Pennsylvania. I've even talked to some of their groups on the phone. I've even been invited on some of their talk shows to explain this, because they're out there preaching, because they know what they left in their country. And they don't want the crap in their country, in our country. I mean, who the hell comes up with this Mexican Day? Everybody says, well, Mexicans were here. No! Go back in history. Natives were here before the Mexicans invaded. The Mexicans invaded us. The Indians were taking them out, shooting them, and doing all that. That was way before the Alamo. But it's looking at real history, but they can't tell you real history. It's just like they lie about Columbus to you. That's why everybody was getting upset the last couple of years. They're taking Columbus's statues down. No Columbus Day in a lot of big cities. Columbus never even came here. Columbus was a raper. He murdered children, literally murdered children. He raped children for entertainment purposes. Read the real history about Columbus. So when you read a lot of the stuff, even Marxism, you read that stuff. Read the true history. I mean, what's his name? Marxism, dealing with that, who started the Mormon Foundation. That Mormon Foundation was only founded in, 1840? So, and everybody goes, well, I'm a Mormon. And I'm like, oh, my God, I'm sorry you're a rapist. No, you don't understand this. I said, I know the history. Maybe you personally not be, but you'll turn your back because of your religion. You have to turn your back if you see it. And that's the way some of these religions are. I mean, in India was national news. 2 guys raped an 8-year-old girl. Literally raped an 8-year-old girl. What did the government of India do? With less than 4 days, they were executed. There was no jury of they knew who did it. They admitted to it. There was witnesses. So they just execute them. There's none of this shit to justify the Article 1 court system, legislative court for financial gain off the birth certificate bond and the 1933 Bankruptcy Act. So, I mean, it's stepping out of the movie, watching what's going on in your own country versus other countries. Most countries, if a man rapes a woman, or especially if a man rapes a child, they're executed. There's none of this 2, 3, 10, 20-year shit. They're executed. Well, that's why I praise some of these district attorneys that have stood up to these men that have done this when other men took and stood up and took them out. And the district attorney says, we can't press charges. And then the devil group called American Civil Liberties Union that doesn't work for you people. Trust me. I mean, I even met with the director, and they were going to take my case. And then when they realized the case was dealing with the actual public servants, oh, they ran. They panicked. We can't handle that case. We can't do that. Oh, I've had several interviews with the ALC, and they won't protect the people. But they sure will protect domestic terrorism. They'll protect immigrants, but they won't protect you. You know? And, of course, they always say there's only so many cases. We only have a limited time of resources and employees. So, anyhow, I didn't realize it was so late. We should open up the thing and open it up for people's comments. You still there? I guess I got to go message him. So that way, I mean, you know, it really does come to us to handle these situations. You know, it is our responsibility. So let me message him because we should be opening up for comments here. So, but the bottom line is that, you know, we do have rights. And the other point is, elected and public employee, I mean, if immigrants are paying their structure that they're supposed to be paying by obligation.
All participants are unmuted.
Oh, there he is. Anyhow, the floor is open.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go to the Florida statute and read number 6 to the people and make sure they understand that.
Okay, let me go up and get the Florida one here.
So I'm going to be bringing something out on that.
Okay, the highlight part here. Number 6 of the Florida statute. And so legislative intent declared, and this Florida is 112.311, legislative intent declared. And this is Section 6. It is declared to be the principle of the state that public officers and employees in local, state, and local agents of the people, remember, they work for you, and hold their position for benefit of the public. They are bounded to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state constitution, and to perform efficiently and faithfully their duties under the laws of federal and state and local government, such as officers and employees are bound to reserve in their official acts the highest standard of ethics constitutes within go ahead.
Consistent.
Oh, thank you. Consistent with the code and the advisory opinions redeemed with the respect hereto regardless of personal reconsideration that promotes the public interest and maintain the respect of the people in their government must be a form of concern.
Foremost concern.
Yeah, foremost. Yeah, I didn't see that most part. But that is the one thing that people have got to get. Each state has it. I will be having Oregon up here pretty soon, and I will be putting that in my affidavit that I'm getting ready to start sending out again. So when I put this out, this is going to blow people away because when I send it out, because the state attorney general of the state of Oregon hasn't been performing her duty at all. I mean, I even produced actual treason charges on Cape Brown that was filed with risk management, and everybody's avoiding what I filed. Everybody, Congress, the House and Senate of Oregon, everybody's avoiding what I filed. And I've been told they're going to avoid it because They don't want to be responsible for what the long-term repercussions are going to be. And see, they should have thought about that. They took the job. They should know the job. And so each state, and go ahead. Okay. Each state, every state, the 48 states have this in their structure off of, oh, come on, why do you keep freezing on me? You know, when we bring this to your attention, each and every state is written off of 5 CFR 2635.101, Basic Obligation of Public Service. You have public servants that are supposed to serve you. And I've been impressed with some of them because I've been noticing that some in the state of Oregon, state police have actually helped people change tires, the elderly and stuff. You know, technically the police are supposed to carry a minimum of 2 5-gallon gas cans in their car. So if somebody runs out of gas, 5 gallons is enough to get somebody to a gas station. So, and that is a requirement that was founded, and that structure was founded back in the 60s in Oregon. California even had it in the 60s. And I remember growing up in California that the California Highway Patrol used to always carry gas. I think they still do. Because if somebody runs out of gas, at least their obligation is to help somebody get out of the situation of possible danger. Sitting on the highway, that's a danger. You know, you could be hit by a semi, a truck, so can they. They know it's a danger risk. So it is called responsibility. And so long as that we're working with these employees that are actually doing it and respecting you, the servant of them, I mean, they're the servant of us, I mean. You know, I still, like I said, it's the way we've been educated, and it's getting these things twisted out of your mind so that way you comprehend what it means. So, I mean, I always love it when people say, "Do you understand?" And they said, "No, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about." Well, don't you understand? I said, "No." When a judge asks you if you understand the charges against you, what charges? I don't understand what this is. How does it affect me? And I've been there. I got videos of me telling judges off in the courtroom, literally. I got videos where I got a judge telling me, "You're going back to jail because you didn't sign the release form with the way I told you to sign it." And I've got the judge actually stating it that way. Then I go back to jail, and the sheriff deputy goes, "Well, do you want to sign this document?" And I said, "No, I don't." Open the door, let them out. And then the other time when I went in, the judge had an order on me. If I didn't pay $7,000 cash, I was not to be released. And if I was released by any deputy, he would make sure they were fired. So, I mean, I paid out, what was it, over about $13,000 in fines, and I only got $8,000 back, and the state kept the rest. Oh, even though I was never convicted of any crime, and all charges of the crime were dropped for what they said, you were interfering in an officer. No, the officer works for me. And I've got the YouTube video of this telling the officer this and all this stuff on YouTube videos live. So, I mean, I've been through this. I mean, I've got videos of me being at the Toledo City Council where they're threatening me and telling me, "Well, you better quit speaking. You don't have a right to talk in this meeting." So, they're going to have a surprise coming up to them. They are going to have a surprise coming up to them. But see, this is the point. When we give you this information that's provided to us, or what we have provided for you, or by either resource, by collectively by how we're doing this and providing it to you, people, quit whining and bitching. Learn how to be a man or a woman and stand up with pride. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Most people don't have pride. Anyhow, anybody else would like to add something instead of me just running my mouth?
May I?
Yep.
On the fourth branch of government, it's from my perspective, the fourth branch of government is a corporate, legislative, administrative democracy.
Okay.
And we, the people, we're the first branch of government because we formed this Constitution to protect the people's rights. But the fourth branch of government wants to do all this corporate, legislative, administrative, democracy stuff that you're talking about. That's what's been going on in Oregon. I have 3 pages of the corporations. The legislature is a corporation in Oregon.
Yep.
And they've put all these twists on it. And then here, what do? They say, oh, we're going to have copyrighted ORSs when we get done. So that if anybody uses Oregon Revised, because they revised the statute that the legislature passed, and if anybody uses it, well, we can go after them for copyright infringement. I mean, that's your fourth branch of government.
Right. And thank you for the correction, because even Judge Scalia in his jury decision said the first branch of government is the people.
And that is exactly right.
My speech. And I got some stuff when we start doing this, starting tomorrow night, on the amendments. You know, we're going to be tackling this stuff all the way down the line.
I'll tell you what, Ed.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the man is correct. And I'll work on putting something together between now and next week. All right? If you understand what's going on in this country, we created a constitution. Okay? If you read Bouvier's definition of charter, okay, a charter is given by a sovereign king. But the people give a constitution. If you read Title 20 of the Florida statute, all right, you're going to find out Title 20 is the organization chart, or organization of government. You need to look that up in your state, because that organization of government is, and you might find an organizational flow chart in your state too. Down here in Florida, I have pulled up the organization flow chart of the state of Florida and the organization flow chart of the
newsflash for everybody. Just got the information. John McCain, senator, and they claim a war hero, even though some things were so questionable, died today at 81.
No great loss.
Well, we know that one, and we know what's going to happen with Hillary Clinton with the Iranian deal now, because he's not there to protect them.
Thank Southern for me, will you?
Yeah. Actually, you just did. So, but that is the whole point about what's going on here, is that we've had these men and women, you know, making, I mean, that's like Kerry claiming he's a war hero and all this stuff. You know, I mean, what was the other one that spent all this money on his house with taxpayers for security? Oh, God, I'm trying to remember his name. I can visualize him. He's running for senator now. Oh, I can't. I'm having a brain fart right now. I'll remember it in a second.
I'm back.
Huh?
I'm back, Mr. Ed. Something cut me off. I guess they didn't like what I was about to say.
Oh, okay. Well, also, too, you had a thank you that was said to you, too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You're supposed to say thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Listen, what's happening in here is we created the constitutions, okay?
Right.
Underneath that constitution, they created a corporation because they could not do business under our constitution. So they had to create a corporation. That corporation, if you start, like I said, start putting up the flow charts in your state, okay? The first thing above everything is the Constitution, and everything below that is subject to the constitutions. Right? This is why I'm going after DCF in Florida, because I've got their flow chart. I've got enough on these people that I'm going to start hammering these people down here, right, like a tank or a battleship. And I can already tell you from what I've already done, they're not going to appreciate it and they're not going to like it, because I went in and pulled up the under the organization of government how DCF is supposed to be ran. And there is absolutely nothing in there that says they can come out here and steal your damn children.
That's right.
Okay? And this is what I'm going to start hammering these people with. Their own stuff. They wrote it. I'm just going to shove it. Yeah, we're going to shove it up their butt. But you need to go into your state, like I said, and start looking up flow charts. Okay? They're very powerful when you can hand somebody a flow chart and say, here's what's going on, buddy. See that little word at the top? It says Constitution? Okay, that means us. Now, when you find the organization of your state, okay, it's got to be there. What that basically is a corporate charter. Right. You need to pull that damn thing up and read it.
Yeah.
Okay? I read mine many times, and I never quite caught it until here recently somebody said something, and I went back and read it, and I said, damn, that's a corporate charter for this state. Thank you very much.
And that's yeah, we like to put that up on the state of Florida on the website, because we're going to be doing Oregon, too. We'll be having Oregon up here shortly, too. But the one thing is I like to bring to everybody's attention, where I've got here, it says challenge to judges, universal all cases to judges, reference on our laws and loyalty to some other authority. Ask the judge for his or she's membership state bar card. If so, you have to challenge it, because a judge cannot have a state bar card, and technically a judge can't have any affiliation with the bar at all.
Well, in the state of Florida, they have to surrender their bar card, and they have to sell their business, right, in order to sit on the bench. But that doesn't really, mean that they still don't have allegiance to the lawyers. Okay? And this is what I'm working on down here.
Right, and this falls under 22 USC 611 as a foreign agent to all judges, lawfully required by 28 USC 302 to have an oath of office filed with the 1938 Foreign Administration Registration Act, a constitutional oath.
Wait a minute, let's go back to, remember, these judges are not foreign agents. They're elected. They're your agents paid by your public revenue.
Right.
They're not foreign agents.
But under the 1933 Bankruptcy Act, if you read it, that's when they became foreign agents for when they get the de facto dollar, because when we got rid of the 18th century real money, when they took real money away, that's how they became foreign agents, and that's in the Act. So, no, I'm not disagreeing with you. They do work for us, and they are our employees, but it classifies them a different standard that when you read this stuff, this is how you can put this stuff together, and if they do wrongful judgment, that is one thing you can file on them, because if they don't comply with that, they are committing a federal crime, and it even says under the Foreign Agent Registration Act, mandatory federal prison. So that was put in to protect the people. This is the one thing that, that we have. Some of these men and women have put stuff in that protects us that's never been challenged, and they've never changed it. They never even tried to amend it, because they know if they amended it, too many people are paying attention to it. And they know it.
I agree.
And so that's the point that I keep bringing up. And I'm not disagreeing with your statement on that at all, because I know that they're public servants, but they have to register with the Foreign Registration Act because of the 1938, because that's under the 1917 Trading with the Enemy Act, and that's in the Act itself.
There's people talking from Florida, California.
Go ahead. Speak up. Speak up. You were talking. You can speak.
Ed, this is John.
Yeah. Go ahead, John. The floor is yours.
Okay, I got a friend in South Texas need your help. She's fixing to be foreclosed on for taxes, their school taxes. Do you have a form? A form now that a person can use to file into court. That it's not legal for the taxes.
Yeah, we could do that. And also, too, Ohio State actually has the Supreme Court challenge on especially school taxes because in Ohio, they can't charge school taxes whatsoever on anything.
How can I get that?
I have to double check. I got it somewhere. And if I have to make a call to Dave, I will, because me and Dave actually put that in several of our affidavits 4 and 5 years ago. And I put it in the structure here, and they keep coming after me. And so now, seeing that I've got the stuff that I'm getting ready to file. I mean, the main reason why I'm doing on the sheriffs, and I sent you the stuff on the sheriffs too, didn't I?
I think you did, yes.
Okay. Read that stuff of what I sent you and go through that, and that would apply to you in Texas. And you could serve your sheriffs and your county commissioners on that, including property tax. And then I'll put together the structure on property tax and email that to you, because I have the structure on property taxes. And I do have it's not a form, but it's information that could be rewritten for the man or woman on property taxes. And if you type in Ed Johnston, John Kitzhopper, on property tax, it will come up, and you can read the 31-page instrument I served on the former governor of John Kitzhopper, because that's one of the reasons why he's not governor anymore. And it should have it in that too. And it has a list. It has 15 pages just in that of federal court cases and laws where they cannot charge you with taxes at all.
Okay.
So that's, it'll become up Edward Johnston versus John Kitzhopper, governor of Oregon, and that will come up. And but like I said, it's been interesting because I watched Google. Google has hardly anything on the website, their structure on me at all. DuckDuck, whatever that one is, has limited. And Yahoo, at one point, I had like 80 pages up, and now I'm down to 2.
Wow.
So they don't want what I've been putting out for the last 15 years to be out to the general public. I just don't understand. I just don't comprehend why. I even put the structure up, how to sue a judge, and I'll send you that too. I do have the structure of how to sue a judge and how to sue a cop. People think that. Go ahead.
We'll have to get together, me and you, this week and discuss that.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you some secrets about that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I wrote a letter. Somebody was going to have their children taken away by DCF down here in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing the lady said when she walked out the door was, "I'm coming back with a warrant. I'm taking those kids." Yeah, all right. She came back all right. And she apologized and swore and told the lady that the case had been closed after I got done with her.
Yeah.
There's a little secret about this government that people don't realize. And we'll have to get together. We'll have to get together this week.
No, that's true. There's a lot of things people don't realize what's going on. I mean, I know cases where cops drove up to people in a parking lot, and the husband was the one who turned the child over when the mother was yelling and screaming at the father, "Don't you do that, don't you do that." And the father turns the kid over to the child because he's scared and afraid. And it's like, but the father didn't want to read and learn. He wanted to watch this damn football game more than he cared about his own children. I know. I dealt with them on it. Pissed me off. So, and then the mother decided after that she just divorced the guy. So, and the guy was all panicking over that. And I did what I should have done. No, you didn't. And she was the one who was actually reading the information I got. And he told me he was going to sit down with her and read it and go over it. And I waited for 2 months for them to call me back, and they never called me back. And that's when she finally got the divorce from him. So, I mean, people are paying attention.
Well, like I said, get with me in the next couple of days, and I'll tell you some secrets about DCF.
Oh yeah, I got something I could tell you too. The one thing I did enjoy when I was up at the Capitol, I did enjoy going around the state for senators and House of Representatives, serving the directors of these agencies. And the next day, the kids were all delivered. You know, so I mean, no, I you know, we could share. We'll have that conversation. But people got to open up. They got to realize that, you know, that these public servants that I keep yelling out, and I've had people tell me they're not public servants. They don't serve us, and it's like, and I've had people tell me the Queen owns this and the Queen owns that, and I've already proven it even to Judge Roberts in the Supreme Court himself. I have proven it to the Supreme Court on this stuff. I have proven stuff to other courts around the state, when, especially on the immigration issue, when I was filing treason charges on the judge and the law. And next thing you know, the judge was saying, well, Trump's got the authority, because it is true. I think it's USC 1182. The president has authority to tell anybody they don't have a right to come in this country, period. And that's the people don't get it, that our forefathers set this up, and the immigration law technically goes back to 1774. They were working on it, and when the Revolutionary War happened, it was sealed in Congress in 1778. So it is interesting. You know, I mean, that's what disturbs me. And everybody says, well, the Queen owns us. Well, when you're making a mortgage and you're borrowing money from a bank for a car, you're borrowing money for personal structure, you're borrowing from the British government. In that sense, yeah, they own you, but they don't own you, but they own you because you agreed to their terms of that contract. And remember, Article 1, Section 10, contract law. These guys know it. That's how they get around this stuff. I know. I was a repo man. I used to serve people for judges and lawyers 20, 25 years, 30 years ago. I mean, you know, trust me, I know what it's like to do this stuff personally. I know what it's like to help people to get their property back when they got it taken. If they, you know, it depends if they were sincere or not. If they were a true asshole, I didn't even give them the time of day. But, you know, if they actually talked to me, then I would give them some ideas. I wouldn't, you know what I'm saying. Because I wasn't taking liability, but I gave them ideas about what, why, and how. You got to realize that, you know, these public servants are doing, we know, is a tyranny what they're doing. And these guys know it, because a cop should not be making $200,000 a year, period. The average starting wage for a cop today is $100,000. Oh, no, it's not. And I've argued even with cops. And then I go in their structure, and then I find out their starting pay is $89,000 or $100,000 a year. And they're telling me, we only get $59,000. And I'm going, well, this is your base pay, $89,000 to $100,000, and that's not including when you go to court, because the cops will tell you they don't get paid to court. That's a lie. They sure to hell do. They get paid for everything they do. They don't get anything that, you know, their labor is not free. And that's where, when you go to court, you got to file on these men and women. And when you file the criminal charges on them personally, that's why Illinois, what was that, 4 or 5 years ago, the Illinois judges told all the cops, and I have that, and I actually have a letter from a couple Illinois judges that sent it out to the police unions, told them to put their property in somebody else's name, so that way if they get sued, they have nothing that nobody could claim.
I think that was North Carolina, wasn't it, under Rod Class?
Well, that was one, yes.
Because I told Rod didn't listen. He stopped. He should have kept going and asked the right questions. He didn't do it.
He should have done that in Washington, D.C. on the gun issue instead of getting an ankle bracelet.
Yep.
And then if you notice, after he got released and the case was dismissed, now all of a sudden you can have arms in Washington, D.C. But Rod didn't finish it. If he would have finished it, you know. Now, I get you. Say, it makes you wonder if Rod Class is Judge Dale.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
I won't go there, but he's not.
I know, but some of the things that makes you wonder what the partnership might be. There's been questions on that. Me and other people have had that for 10 years. So, but anyhow, so tomorrow night we're going to start with Article 1. I'm going to get into stuff. I got a couple videos I want to put up that are education, and then I plan on doing an open forum because I want to make sure how people are going to respond, talk, bring information in, because this is we the people doing this. And so I want to clarify, this ain't just about one individual, one man or a woman. This is about we the people, because we are making changes. We are rocking these people. They are getting it. I know that the Sheriff Association is panicking. I even got the word on the street here in the county from a couple people I won't get into what I served, including the local sheriff, that they're trying to figure out what they can do. And I've noticed that a lot of public employees are starting to take a lot of early retirement now.
The head of DCF, Mike Carroll, just...
I knew it too. Yeah.
He just decided he wouldn't want to be in public office no more.
Oh yeah, because then they're still liable. But don't forget that these men and women are still liable after they retire. They are not exonerated for criminal activities. You have 5 years for their retirement to file the criminal activities on them. That's administrative rules. After 5 years, you can't touch them. But in 5 years, you sure the hell can. And people are waking up to it. More and more is coming out. And then you got to admit, with all the information, all of us are bouncing back and forth and, working with each other, and how this is really opening things up. And I'm waiting to hear the response, to tell you the truth. I'm literally waiting to hear the response how they want me to pay their administrative fees. Because I got one hell of a surprise letter that I've got for them that is going to shock the shit out of them. And some of that even comes from the United States Treasury and the Comptroller, their own administrative rules. And when I do that, I have to send those emails have to go to the Comptroller, because they're violating the Comptroller and the Treasury laws. And the Treasury cannot take that risk because they don't want to lose their backdoor budget from Congress. And that actually was even a statement that came on CNN about a year and a half ago. They were talking about being scared of losing budget, one of the budgets that they said something like the budget that the public doesn't know about. So, there's a lot of things that is really happening. So we're making changes. There's a lot of us doing it. And there's more than one of us doing it too. So that's the other beauty that helps all of us. So anyhow, anybody else would like to add anything into this evening?
Ed?
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Laura from Texas. I'm wondering, this is my first time on your show.
Right.
And I would like to know if you think it's possible. I'm dealing with a couple of court cases. One is a foreclosure for a sheriff's sale, foreclosure for property taxes, and another is also for property taxes, but I have a court case. And I'm wondering if I can use Anna von Reitz's bond to address these two.
Be careful with Anne von Reitz. She is not a judge.
Right.
She has never been a judge. And the one thing with her package that everybody spends $500 on, a lot of those people have ended up in jail. She was the founder and worked with, what was their name? Bruce Brissett and the Continental Judges and Marshals. She was one of the founders who actually educated them, and most of them are in prison right now.
Okay.
I mean, have you ever heard about the Continental Judges and Marshals?
Not really.
Okay.
They wanted me to be one of those. I said, no way.
We all agree to that one. I kept on telling Bruce he's going to end up in jail, and he's like, "You don't comprehend. I filed all these liens and all this stuff, and they're good." And I said, "No, you never proved in the lien that you were actually harmed and injured. Read the lien structure to a public employee. You have to have personal and property damage. You have to file an intent to sue. You have to file an intent on their employment before you could even file a lien." And they were just filing liens left and right. That's why a lot of these men and women ended up in jail. Bruce got 38 years for it.
What kind of lien was it? Like an ag lien or a mechanics lien type, or?
Yeah, with a property and a mechanics lien on their assets. So you got to be careful on what you file. You have to, when you write your affidavit, you have to prove that you are the injured party. Now, the other point I would suggest immediately you do is file identity theft with the federal government and FCC immediately.
And how do I go about doing that?
It's online. Just type in identity theft of federal government and file it immediately, because when they use your social security number and your personal information for the sheriff's closure, that's identity theft. And I could, you're a friend of the other gentleman in Texas. He has my email. Send me an email, and I'll send you some stuff on it.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. And so that is the point that you need to pay attention. I'll send you some information on property taxes. We do have a slight form set up, but you have to read all of it and make your own decision how to put your structure together, because each situation is basically textbook same, but each situation is different what they have done.
Right. Now, may I ask, her process, Anna von Reitzer's process is to basically give expatriate and the deed of reconveyance and all that. Did you all do all that, or not? No,
I filed on my property as the owner. I publicized it in the newspaper for a month or 3 weeks, and nobody disagreed that I was not the owner. The county commissioners, the city, anything. I filed it with the state. I filed it. My structure with the newspaper is actually filed in the Oregon State House and Senate, and it's recorded in records. I do things a lot differently than most, because I go after them. A lot of people say do it in the private sector and stay out of that. Use your family name and all this. They wrote the laws. They wrote the administrative rules, so I use their administrative rules against them. They wrote it, we quote it. So, Ann von Rice, like I said, her package, to my understanding and my comprehension, I've had the information and gone through some of it, and she charges for that stuff. And I'm amazed a lot of people have bought a lot of her stuff, and a lot of people actually have ended up in jail over her stuff.
Well, actually, she doesn't charge for it. It's free on her website.
Okay, that's interesting, because I know for a fact she charges a lot of other people she has charged for, and she's got it on her website, too, unless she changed it. Of course, that could have been after the deal that I won't get into. Not only me, but other people went after her. Because I made it public that even on her own talk show, she was not a judge in what she did, and I actually got her letter clarifying that she was never a judge. She's just claiming to be an independent judge.
Right.
That's by her own words, her own letter, and that letter is actually on her website.
Is it?
Yeah. And I have it, and I could always send it to you. And the associate you got down there, tell him to give you my Facebook deal, and I'll send it to you on Facebook and a lot of other stuff. You give me your email, I'll send you stuff that you will be shocked about.
Okay, that sounds great. I really appreciate you, Ed. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a collective. There's a lot of other people, men and women, that we all been working on this, not just me. but we're all getting the information out. And so that's the point. And you've got to file identity theft and make sure once you get your identity theft record number, you make sure that's filed with the sheriff.
Okay.
Because if the sheriff is doing identity theft, and then I'll send you the letter I just served all the sheriffs in the state of Oregon and corporation state, and you can serve your sheriff. You know, and make sure it's publicized. Make sure it's all over Facebook, the media, people in your community. If you really got friends that support you, comprehend you, who realize that they're in danger, pass it on.
Okay.
Because, I mean, my work is a collective work for the last basic 15 years of my, 20 years of my writing. And that's just by my research and by collective of everybody else that we've been doing it. We've combined, we've worked with each other, we've come up with these situations so that way it protects others beside ourselves. You know, and then the other thing on YouTube, you could type in property tax fraud. Gentleman has a wonderful video, and he quotes you the actual laws on his video. And he's from Florida, who put this thing together. And he's still, he's been there on his property for 19 years now, or 18 years, and he's never paid a stick of taxes at all in his state or community.
Nice.
So, but it's doing it, because, you know, they're going to ruffle, they're going to whine and cry. You know, I mean, I've even had death threats over it by them and everything else, and I can give a damn about them.
Right.
Well, I mean, I won't tell you what I used to do for a living, but I know the game. I wouldn't sell my soul to the company store. At one point, I was going into law enforcement, and when I realized the real truth of it, 30 years ago, I would not do it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And then I have the other regret, because a lot of these corporations, I wrote some of their security plans they go by today, and I never got paid for them. Some of these guys I thought were my friends, and then I found out they weren't.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's been, you know, we all go through things in life.
Absolutely.
You know, but it depends on how you want to learn. And the one thing is that go to your state on taxes, and look at your state administrative rules on taxes. You'll find out that taxes, even in your state administrative rules, should say commercial taxes.
Okay.
If you have a commercial property, yes. If you're not a commercial property, no.
So what you're saying is that on commercial properties, it is allowed?
Yes, because if you rent the home, that's interest and dividends by the tax codes. Because you're making interest and dividends off a rental, and that's how they classify it unless you separate it as a private deal and you're doing private contracts with the tenant. That means if the tenant stays there, breaks property or stuff, you can't call the sheriff and stuff. You're liable. You have to take care of it yourself.
Right, but if it's a commercial lot with no improvements on it.
Did you ever file zone changement on it?
No.
It's a suggestion you should start on it now, too.
Okay.
And like I said, send me an email. I do have information. Our website is new.oregon.trackers, and go to the banking structure and the mortgage structure. There are videos and there's information on it.
Okay, perfect. I'll do that, Ed. Thank you so very much, okay?
You know, and so when are they trying to send the armed guards out for you?
The beginning of September.
Oh, shit. We got a few days to really do something because...
Yes, I don't have much time left.
Well, how long have you known the other guy and you never brought this up?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
How long have you known the other guy?
Well, not very long. Actually, we just met about a week or so ago.
Oh, okay.
And I reached out to him, and he's the one that gave me the contact to attend this show tonight. Gotcha.
You know, and like I said, there are a lot of us that have been through this, going through it. And I personally know men and women who are literally off the tax rolls. And some of these men and women have literally written their property and assets down to the 5th and 6th generation. So that way it's done through not estates. Do not do estate stuff. Estate is lawyers' corporations. Stay out of states. You want to write it up as private property and private soil.
Private property and private soil.
Right.
Okay. And are you referring to land patents? Is that how they take the property off?
Some of them have actually done that, yes. And you have to do a land patent through BLM. You have to go back to the structure of when that property was originally formed, and you have to go back, and if it's been divided, you have to go back to the original structure the way it was divided, claim the dividing that you didn't accept it, but you do accept the changes that they did, so that way you could privately own it. But you want to file that with BLM, and they'll balk and squawk. But BLM has no authority. They're supposed to do their job. And actually, I have the videotape with BLM attorneys admitting that they have no authority at all, even to arrest people, and that's by their own attorneys. Right. And you can type in on the internet, on YouTube, BLM attorneys state they have no rights.
Right. We're not under BLM in Texas. Texas.
Yeah, you guys are basically a separate nation when it really comes down to it.
Yes.
Okay, but see, you have to go back to the Texas Constitution and go through that, and you'll find the things through the Constitution, and then you have to cross-reference that to statutes and administrative rules that they have wrote, and trust me, they do have them that they wrote to protect you people.
Okay.
It is learning that, because it's like Florida Constitution. That wasn't written till later, and Florida Constitution has a contract, in a sense, with Cuba.
Wow.
And the last place that the United States Corporation, United States Inc., 3202, was filed, and their contract is up. That was in 1925. And that's the last filing, to the best of my knowledge, and everybody else I've talked to, unless I get something new. That's the last place the United States Corporation was filed, was in Florida.
Hey, Ed?
Yeah, go ahead.
We found that same Florida United States Corporation Inc.
Yeah.
All right, is in every state that is not, repeat, not the United States of America. Okay?
Oh, yeah, no, thank you. Yes.
That is a private corporation out of Delaware. It is a combination of American Bar Association and Delaware Trust that created Corporate Services Corporation, and the United States Corporation Company, or whatever it is, Inc., filed in Florida, is a subsidiary of that. The head honcho is a man named Rodman Ward III, sitting in Delaware.
Right. Thank you for that.
That if you get into that, which I've gotten really, I pulled all the stuff off Florida. They are a service processing company.
Right.
So they're serving you a process. Basically, they're the damn lawyers.
Right, and then if you got served by the sheriff of the county, did you respond back to them and tell them they don't agree to their contract? Is she still with us?
I'm sorry, I muted my phone.
Okay.
No, I did not know I had to do that.
Yes. You have to send them a registered certified letter that you don't agree to their contract.
Okay.
And like I said, that 5 USC information we read tonight, you could actually put that in your letter, too.
Okay.
Yeah, and that will shock the shit out of them. But see, you're not agreeing to their contract, and I got the letter that was done in, what the hell state was that done? I've got the letter where the Supreme Court in one state clearly stated the sheriffs have no power to arrest anybody at all. They are a corporation member, and the only reason why they have authority to arrest anybody is a criminal, not statute, codes, and administration, because the sheriffs were created when it comes back to the public structure, even though that Lincoln and everybody else had stuff that were called sheriff. but the sheriff department wasn't created until 1878 with the bar. And if you look back in history of, what was that movie? Blazing Saddles. And if you ever watch Blazing Saddles, Mel Brooks actually tells you the service of the sheriff in the comedy skits he does. People never caught that in Blazing Saddles. So there's a lot of things that movies do tell you. And the one movie that I do recommend you watching is Interstate 60 as well. That explains your court systems.
Okay, definitely. I will.
So, yeah, get the email and stuff from your friend there, and we'll get you some information. But I suggest Monday you file identity theft claim immediately.
Okay.
Because they're using your identity for personal and financial gain, and that is a crime.
Okay. I will do that, Ed. Thank you so much.
And they don't want people to know that you have a right to file identity theft when they're using it. Even traffic tickets, when they write you a ticket, that's identity theft right there.
Really?
Yep. When they use your driver's license, even though it's a corporation structure, that's identity theft. That driver's license is for corporate purposes only, not to travel.
Wow.
And the Supreme Court has definitely stated that in numerous court cases. They even had a recent court case in 2017 that clearly stated that you don't need a driver's license to travel in the 48 states.
Wow.
And I've got the other stuff that you don't need insurance and the insurance fraud and all that. So, like I said, all this is an eye-opening for a lot of people because we grew up being told that, oh, we need to, believe in this or do that and stuff. And then we start realizing in life, we're going, shit, we've been lied to all of our life on all this stuff.
I know. I kind of feel like when I woke up, I started saying, wow, everything I've lived has been a lie.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's not a disagreement, and it's frustrating. But the other point is that you got a lot of reading and homework to do, and I hope you can read it.
Yes, definitely.
And that's the point. I mean, it does affect you. It doesn't affect anybody else because you're in the situation of saving yourself and your land.
Correct.
So it is you're in a unique situation. So definitely start with the identity theft Monday. We do have some stuff I'll send you on that to put your own instrument together. Because I'm no lawyer, I'm no attorney. We don't get paid. Me and my associate, we don't get paid for anything we do. We're not out for personal gain, but we do take gifts for the electricity and water bills.
I'm sure. There's nothing wrong with that.
We just give them the electricity company, and if people want to give a gift to the electricity company on our behalf, we don't argue.
That's right.
So, I mean, we are in that position. I'm disabled. And the other point, like I said, last July, I died again. I was on life support for 6 days.
I'm so sorry to hear that. You're in
Well, it's life. I mean, I just got through serving all the sheriffs, and I served an indictment on another public employee that's an official in the state. And next thing you know, all of a sudden, I mean, I started having problems 6 months prior, really got bad. And so it makes you wonder. It's like 2013. I had 2 heart attacks right in a row. And it's like, okay, I mean, we know the satellites are able to do that by sonic waves. And that's even that, the 5G satellites are going in your community.
I'm scared to death about that.
Oh, yeah. No, people, and they're trying to push it out that it's a wonderful thing. Those 5Gs are they're going to destroy people up. The cell phones, they finally proved that it does create brain shortness and shortness wave brains, or electronic shortness to the brain. And they knew that when this stuff was coming out. It's not like the old cell phones back in the 80s at all, because they didn't have the structure in it for the waves that they do today.
Right.
And that's the one thing I wish I would have saved my old cell phone back in the 80s, because I could still use it today and I wouldn't have been affected. But I don't have a cell phone. I won't own one. I'm smarter than that.
Right.
because I've watched this stuff and I've done the research, and so it is one of those things. And most high officials in government don't have cell phones. They know it too.
I wonder if the flip phones have the same effect.
Yes, they do.
Really?
Type in your serial number on your flip phone and do the research on electronic waves for that series.
Okay, I'll do that.
And that's the one thing people don't think about, researching what they have or what they're dealing with around them.
Right.
Because people don't think about it. We're not taught to think about these things. We just go on and we just assume it's, structure.
Right.
It's safe. I remember when Star Trek was doing the flip phones back in Star Trek, and everybody thought it was cute and funny. And then when they came out with it, they were like, "What?" And it's like, you got to realize in TV and history. I mean, back then, military had cell phones back in the '60s.
Wow.
It wasn't publicized. It wasn't out. You can say most of your electronics are 20 years behind time. That until we get them, they've already been out in certain structures of high officials and high military.
Wow.
But people don't do the research. They don't do this stuff. And a lot of that stuff, what I remember reading back in, electronic mechanics, back in the 70s when I was going through mechanic school and doing all this, they had stuff in that stuff that people didn't, when they read, they didn't comprehend or pay attention to what it meant. Mm-hmm. Of course, I thought it was funny, a lot of stuff I read. I knew it was coming down, but most people didn't want to pay attention. I just missed out on a lot of investments that now I wish I would have done back then. I had the opportunity back in the 80s, late 80s, to invest in Apple, and I didn't think about it at the time because I was one of those people that go, "Oh, this ain't going to happen." Of course, those are the things you go in life going,
Right.
But, that's life. So, like I said, we don't think about these things. So, anyhow, anything else? Come here, honey.
No, not for me. Thank you so much.
Come here, honey.
I'll look forward to that info.
Yeah. As soon as you get me something, I'll start sending you some stuff.
Okay.
Get you some videos out that will explain things to you.
Great. Sounds great, Ed. I really appreciate it. And take care of yourself because we need you.
Oh, I'm not worried about it. It ain't my time to go yet.
That's right.
I know it. So does the Great Spirit.
That's right.
I mean, people go off on these tangents, and it's like, I think differently in life than most people do because I don't support or go along with religion. Because I grew up and I became a minister and all this stuff, and I just saw the mind control and power control that religion does to people. They don't think, they just react. Of course, they're taught that.
Exactly.
So, anyhow, anybody else would like to add anything?
Hey, Ed?
Yeah.
Give me a call tomorrow morning, would you?
Yeah. Well, when I wake up. I'm not an early bird.
Okay.
You know that.
Yep. All right, talk to you later.
All right, you have a good evening. So, anybody else like to add anything before we call it a night? Nobody else has got anything to add tonight? Well, with that, then we'll say good evening, and may the Great Spirit and Mother Earth provide for you, feed you, give you life, and may the Creator look over us and protect us all.
All participants are muted.
Hey, I've got else is voting? I plan on it to be a little shorter show. Right. There we go.